excited to teach you some exercises you can do on a Swiss ball. You may call it a gym ball. So it's a large inflatable ball, and really good practice to be using this when you're sitting at a desk if you can. So we will work through the 5 basic principles of STOTT Pilates, but on this ball for a change. So usually I would say for you to have your knees and feet hip distance apart, lined up with those hip bones at the front, but for stability purposes, do consider just widening the feet slightly so that you can concentrate on what you're doing. So deep breaths to start off with. So we're expanding the rib cage to the sides and front and back. If you are feeling stressed at work, I highly recommend doing some belly breathing to calm your anxiety and calm down your central nervous system. But if you want to try and improve your lung capacity, then if you gently brace the abdominals while sitting on the ball and expand into the ribs here, you will feel a greater abdominal connection. So now you've done your lovely breaths in through the nose, out through a pursed lip to really get that pelvic floor firing. So we're thinking about that lift from the seat, the deeper transverse abdominis which wraps around your torso here, just tightening, as if someone were pulling the corset strings at the back of your corset. Moving on to pelvic placement, really lovely exercises for you to try here. So we're going to do a pelvic tilt. So I'll turn sideways so you can see better. So we are lining up our hip bone and our pubic bone on a vertical plane, and for ladies just a slight tip forwards to allow for that low back curve, gents, so you can keep those bones completely lined up vertically. Okay, so we're inhaling, exhaling, thinking about connecting the ribs and the hip bones at the front, and it's basically a pelvic tilt but on an exhale. And the reason you're doing this is not because you're squeezing and clenching your bum, it's because you're tightening the abdominals at the front and feeling that really lovely low back stretch, just keeping everything else relaxed. So your exhale imprint, so we're tucking forwards, a slight roll, do hold on to something if you need to. Lovely, okay. And then moving on to a gentle side to side tip. So this might make you aware or not of any imbalance, and it can help you to redress any slight imbalance you have in the pelvis. It will also loosen you up nicely. So we're tipping side to side. So imagining sand pouring along a shelf or a desk toy. So it's just gently sliding one side and then the other. And if you feel like you want to energize yourself, ready for something that's coming up, then you gently tip side to side. That brings us nicely onto a pelvic circle, pelvis circle. So you're going to tip forwards into that imprinted spine. Then you go side, then gentle arch of the back, releasing that tailbone away from the floor, then draw it back under and keep going. So you don't need to think too much about this, but do observe if there are any tight areas. If you feel any tightness in your hip flexors, try to consciously allow that to release, change direction. So do 3 to 5 in each direction, or as many as you feel like doing. So bringing that to a close, we're now thinking about your rib cage placement. So let's try shifts to the side. Do hold on to the ball if you need, or something else. Something sturdy, a gentle shift of the rib cage, side to side. This may be harder for some than others. And notice whether one side feels better or the other, or more natural. It may be that you have a slight pull of your body in one direction or the other. So let's try and redress that balance. You might find your hips want to move instead. Try to isolate the rib cage. And then we're going into forward and back, so I'll turn side again so you can see. So you're gently, nice wide stance with the feet please, shifting the rib cage forwards and then tucking it back. So you're bringing it open, flaring those ribs, inhale, and then exhale, tuck it back. You don't need to overdo this, but just use this as a way to, once you've settled down, make it smaller and smaller and smaller, settle away from these two extremes and just notice where that centre is for you. Still with the hip bone and the pubic bone on that vertical plane, slight tip forwards for ladies. So you should feel nicely balanced there. And now you're in that ideal postural alignment for the hips and the ribs. We'll add a side bend. Again, wider stance if you feel like you might fall. Hand on the ball or hand on a solid surface or wall. If you want to go gently, let's just start with hands sliding along the side of your body. So start with the tip from the ear to the shoulder, don't jam it down. And gently uncurl the spine on the way back up. So you're listening to your shoulder and then folding, keeping the abdominals drawn in and up, no tucking of the tail. Keep that neutral pelvic alignment, so the hip bones above the pubic bone. Again, slight tip forwards for ladies to allow for that low back curve. If you feel able, you can lift one arm. Hold that alignment, particularly if you suffer with neck pain. So that's your next level up. Stay with that one if you think that's the best, or feel free to go overhead with that arm. But if that introduces clicking, cracking, crunching, or pain in that neck shoulder area, just release that arm out to the side and work your way up to that version. Good, so from here we're moving into scapular movement and stabilisation. Basically your shoulder blade placement, stabilising that area at the back and getting some movement as well going in there. So a lot of us, myself included when I'm not paying attention, will be working on our laptop, the keyboard is here, the monitor is down here, and we will start to gradually fold, whether you're in a chair or on a ball. So let's try and keep that postural alignment going. And what you'll find is if you are sitting on a ball or a stability disc or cushion, that if you keep the pelvis moving forwards and back and side to side and round, it's easier to maintain that lift out of the hip. So keep that pelvis moving, keep your body having to keep up with those small micro movements and larger ones as you go. So the shoulder blades, you can, if you're in an office with other people, you might want to be a bit more subtle about this. So we're gently drawing the shoulder blades apart, and you'll feel a gentle tightening in the front of the pecs, and then a lovely stretch at the front as you contract the muscles at the back. Don't do this too hard or fast, don't jam things together, but it's just a gentle floating of the shoulder blades. They will glide around the curve of your ribs. Should feel really lovely. And if you want to add just a tiny bit of challenge, then you have the arms in front of you. Hands are shoulder distance apart. If you find it hard to visualise that, maybe imagine yourself holding an A4 folder lengthways. But I'm quite small, so you may need to broaden and separate those arms a little if you have broader shoulders than me. So we're gently drawing the shoulder blades apart and together, but notice how I'm not lifting into my shoulders to do this. Release and relax down, but never force down the shoulder blades. Just imagine that they're floating and sinking down into a set of pockets in the back of your shorts or trousers. So we've mobilised this area and hopefully we're feeling really good. Now we can circle the shoulders back. Now I always prefer the backwards circle over the forwards because it encourages me to melt the shoulder blades down the back. If you're short on space, you may need to stay here. If you have a little more room, you can have hands on the shoulders, drawing circles, and visualise those even round circles being drawn to the sides with the elbows. Again, clicking, cracking or crunching, not a good thing. So make the circle smaller and gradually bigger until you can improve that range of motion without pain. And then working your way up if you have space. I have lots, lucky me. To draw circles again, just noticing if there's any pain, any cracking, crunching, anything that doesn't feel good. and that helps those shoulders to feel warm, broad and ready to go. Moving on to head and cervical placement, i.e. your head and your neck. How are you placing them? Again, turning sideways so you can see. Settle yourself nice and comfy, make sure you're well balanced, have a little wiggle, and hopefully I'm doing okay for placement today. Depends what you've been doing, whether you've been down here on smart devices or playing with small children. Look at me. Relax those shoulders broad and melt them down. We want the tips of the ears working their way up towards the ceiling, or if you want to imagine, or you have, a ponytail, that it's gently being lifted towards the ceiling. So we're not poking the chin out, we are drawing it back. So you're thinking about shooting a beam of light out of the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. So if you did dip the head, you'd be shooting towards the top corner. Just have an awareness of that. Do maybe try filming yourself sitting and have a look and see. Put a time lapse on while you're working. It's quite interesting, quite revealing to see how your body gradually collapses as you go. So that's your head and cervical placement, head and neck. Feel free to turn and look over one shoulder and the other. Without judging, just notice how far you can gaze to one side and the other, and whether you start to rotate or move, shift other parts of the body in order to get that movement that you want. That brings us nicely into a spine twist. Again, make sure you're pretty wide with the feet to keep yourself stable. Now you can put your hands on your hips, hand on the ball, or hands on the shoulders. Deep breath in, exhale, and look to the back, inhale to the front. So we're trying to keep the pelvis steady without any shifts to compensate. So we're stabilising that pelvis. Exhale back, inhale forwards. So if I'm rotating to my left, I'm gently drawing my right shoulder forwards to assist that rotation. And again, inhale, exhale. So I'm turning to my right, so my left shoulder is just gently bringing me a little bit further around. So as I rotate, I'm focusing on the shoulder that's pushing me beyond, not the one that's pulling back, because I don't want to pop a shoulder joint if I overdo this. Particularly if you practice this with arms to the side, if you have space. I'm just imagining you knocking everything off your desk as you do this. The hands, if you try this, are definitely below the shoulders. If you start creeping up, that no neck monster will appear, so just keep the hands gently floating down below the shoulder line. Crack, 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 crack. Should feel really lovely. Make sure you're even. Okay, so there's no limit to how many times you incorporate these exercises into your everyday. Hopefully they should become habit, particularly if you are sitting on a Swiss ball, or if you're sitting, I'm pointing at my, at my stability disc over there in the corner. And this should encourage you to get that gentle movement and relaxation of the hip flexor at the front if you're tight in this area. Obviously, please get up and wander, go make yourself a cup of tea, talk on the phone while standing, just to keep yourself moving throughout the day, and hopefully you'll feel a lot better. Let me know if you try it, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.